And I just want to say to the kids out there watching, you can do anything you want in life. Yeah, unless Jay Leno wants to do it too.
To the public, Jay Leno has long been considered an everyman, just a regular Joe Bag of Donuts who worked hard to become a successful comedian and talk show host. For decades, he has entertained millions with his no-nonsense, workmanlike approach to comedy. To the average TV viewer, Jay Leno is just a regular guy who makes you laugh and who you wouldn't mind sharing a slice of pizza with. To many comedians, however, he is considered something of a monster. Leno built his success on his everyday guy observing the crazy world around him brand of comedy, not only perfecting it, but turning him into a household name. So, whether you think he's funny or not, it still seems strange that a guy like Leno would cause such vitriol among his fellow comics. He seems so middle of the road, a location Leno purposely and smartly put himself in, that to hate on the now 71-year-old comic seems kind of petty. But there are many comics out there, big-name comics, who not only dislike Leno, but think he's pretending to be a good guy when in reality, he's pretty much an a-hole. Now, most stand-ups, no matter what their act may be, are often super jealous, super competitive, and super bitter. So, a lot of what they say or feel about Jay Leno should be taken with a grain of salt. That being said, there have been so many stories of Jay Leno being a jerk as he rose to prominence that it does make you wonder if his claims of being an unassuming guy who just kind of fell into a successful showbiz career are true or just an act.
Which begs the question, why is there such a disconnect between what the public thinks of Jay Leno and what comedians think of Jay Leno? There are worse people in Hollywood with even worse behavior, so why is Jay Leno singled out? And how and why did Jay Leno become so despised by other comedians? Let's find out.
Ironically, as a comic in the 1970s, Leno was incredibly well respected. He was known by his peers as someone who, while not groundbreaking, was consistently funny. He was also known for his incredible work ethic, often booking gigs close to 300 times a year. After several successful appearances on The Tonight Show and multiple appearances on Late Night with David Letterman, more on that relationship later, Leno solidified his reputation as a solid and reliable comic, so much so that Johnny Carson tried him out as a guest host of his show, and when that proved successful, Leno signed a contract to become one of 2 permanent guest hosts for The Tonight Show in 1986. The other permanent guest host? The incomparable Joan Rivers. So everything is going along swimmingly, and no one at this time has anything really bad to say about Jay Leno. People like him, he's respected, and honestly no one, comedian or comedy fan, thinks of the inoffensive Jay Leno as any sort of bully in any sense of the word. But then one thing happens that changes all of that, and that thing snowballs to the point where comedians go from thinking of Leno as a nice guy to a total jerk. And what's that one thing that started the avalanche of Jay Leno hate? Johnny Carson retiring. In 1992, Johnny Carson surprised many by retiring from his long-standing role as America's beloved and premier talk show host. There had been speculation that David Letterman, whose late-night show followed Carson's, would take over hosting duties, a position Letterman had not only publicly coveted, but Carson had also publicly expressed his wishes for Letterman to get the gig. NBC, doing what TV networks do best, instead picked the clean-cut Leno, considered a safer, more middle America-friendly choice. That decision led to such a gigantic controversy that there's not only a book about it, but there's a movie about it based on the book, both called The Late Shift. And if you're thinking, hey, what's the big deal? NBC chose Leno, not Letterman, that's not Jay Leno's fault, and that's a valid point. The problem is, it was later revealed that Leno actually had a secret deal with NBC to permanently host The Tonight Show should Carson ever step down. Leno's own monologue writer, Jimmy Brogan, even confirmed it, saying, quote, "It was part of his re-upping as the guest host, and that was set." The thing is, no one else knew this, not Letterman, not even Carson. Carson was so pissed off that he never went back to The Tonight Show as a guest when Leno hosted, opting to go on Letterman's CBS show instead. And once he landed the Tonight Show gig, he held onto it with an iron-like grip. In the early to mid-90s, Leno did everything he could to make sure smaller late-night hosts like Dennis Miller and Arsenio Hall lost out on guests. Said Arsenio Hall, quote, "Jay and I used to be friends. Dennis and Jay used to be friends. Something's wrong with someone who's always surprised about people being upset with them." When an audience member asked Leno what he thought about Hall's anger with him, Leno seemed to shrug it off and say, "Hey, welcome to show business. What are you gonna do?" Tactics like this are Hollywood's standard operating procedure, but coming from Leno, who constantly portrays himself as just a regular guy who lucked into a job, his actions seem incredibly disingenuous at best and hurt the careers of others at worst. And nowhere is this more abundantly clear than the Jay Leno-Conan O'Brien dust-up.
Leno reigned supreme in late-night ratings over the next decade and stood on top of the massive talk show dogpile as king. In 2003, Leno announced that he was planning to leave NBC by 2010. Conan O'Brien was soon named Leno's heir apparent on The Tonight Show. Leno even went so far to say on his very own show in 2014, "Conan, it's yours, see you in 5 years, buddy."
Debuted on September 14, 2009, a mere 3.5 months after Conan officially took over The Tonight Show. Jay's show tanked, but at the same time, Conan's version of The Tonight Show was tanking too. So, what did NBC decide to do? They decided to move The Jay Leno Show to 11:35 p.m., shorten it to a half an hour, then air the Conan-hosted The Tonight Show at 12:05 a.m. Reportedly, Conan wasn't even notified before the change was announced. On January 12, 2010, O'Brien issued a press release that stated he would not continue with The Tonight Show if it moved to a 12:05 a.m. time slot, saying, quote, "The Tonight Show at 12:05 simply isn't The Tonight Show." Leno could have walked away from all of this hot mess, especially since he already said he would a year earlier. Instead, when it was announced that NBC had struck a deal with O'Brien to leave The Tonight Show, Leno went ahead and agreed to come back as its host in its original time slot. Even worse, Leno then went on Oprah insisting that 1. He had nothing to do with any of this, 2. He only agreed to rejoin The Tonight Show to be a good guy and help get their ratings back up, and 3. Saying that his announcing that Conan would be his replacement on live TV was, quote-unquote, a white lie on the air. It was just maybe easier that way. Unsurprisingly, Leno held on to this job on The Tonight Show for 4 more years until he officially retired, again, in 2014. And once Leno took, some say stole, The Tonight Show from Conan, comedians came out of the woodwork confirming what many in the biz had already known, that Jay Leno was not the good guy the American viewing public thought. Jimmy Kimmel, prior to beginning work on his ABC talk show, told TV Guide that he planned on doing, quote, the comedy version of The Tonight Show. He went on to say about Leno's behavior, quote, as a comedian, you can't not have disdain for what he's done. He totally sold out. He's a master chef who opened a Burger King. George Lopez called Leno, quote, the biggest two-faced dude in TV. Shock jock Howard Stern noted, quote, I've never seen anybody who behaves like a robot like this guy. Rosie O'Donnell called Leno a bully and his actions classless. Former Late Late Show host Craig Ferguson started referring to failed punchlines as Leno jokes. And Patton Oswalt compared Leno to disgraced President Richard Nixon, commenting, quote, his sort of drive to power is weirdly parallel with Jay's, I think. Also saying, quote, comedians who don't like Jay Leno now, and I'm one of them, we're not like Jay Leno sucks. It's that we're so hurt and disappointed that one of the best comedians of our generation willfully has shut the switch off.
And what about the two funny men he hurt the most, Conan O'Brien and David Letterman? Well, Conan told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, the odds are we will both leave this earth without speaking to each other, which is fine. There's really nothing to say. We both know the deal. He knows, I know. And as for Letterman, the close friend who was in the comedy trenches with Leno, the man who put Leno on his talk show countless times, the man who effectively helped Leno steal The Tonight Show away from him, well, on The Late Show with David Letterman, he actually told Conan, who was a guest one night not long after the Conan-Leno controversy, quote, I've known Jay a long, long time. We go back to the mid-70s. Jay was always the guy. He was the funniest guy. He was the guy you wish you could be more like. He was also a bit of a brat. When this came along, I said, oh yes, this is the Jay Leno I know.